In the New Testament lesson today, we have this line that has been so misunderstood and misused and used to really abuse people a lot of times that I want to talk about it, because it's one of these lines that was meant by the Bible to be a line of hope and grace and joy and sustainment and perseverance. And we as Christians historically have used it as this like cudgel. You reap what you sow. Right? I say that, and for almost everyone, it's got this like negative connotation. But it's because we use it incorrectly. We use it in a non-biblical way. We use it as a statement of judgment and condemnation when it's really one of hope and grace. So I want to talk about how we've used it. I want to talk about the sort of complexities of that, and then I want to talk about its real meaning of hope and grace. So many of us have probably run across someone who's told us, or maybe we've told others, you reap what you sow. Now, I think the most classic example I can think of is I had a friend. He was a good guy. We're in our 20s. He decides he's going to South Padre Island to party for spring break. This is a thing that in Texas you do, because that's where you party if you want to party in spring break and you're over 21. Okay? Every state has this, right? Okay. So he goes down there, he goes partying. You know what? He gets drunk. You know why? Because it's spring break and it's the 2000s. Okay? And he's at South Padre Island. You know what percentage of people are probably doing that? Like 90-something at South Padre Island at that week of the year. And so he gets drunk. He gets ready to walk back to his place, but he's so drunk he can't remember how to get there. So he wanders out to the beach and eventually passes out on the beach. Unfortunately for him, a police officer comes along later that night, and in South Padre Island, you cannot be on the beach past 9 p.m. Or you are trespassing on state or federal land, depending on where you are. And so he gets quickly arrested and thrown into jail. He gets his one call. He calls his dad, and he says, "Dad, this is what happened." And his dad says, "Well, I don't know why you called me. You reap what you sow." Now, it's this moment of massive condemnation. And is unfortunately usually used when somebody is already in pain. When somebody already knows the lesson they shouldn't have done, they're just asking for help or mercy or grace or compassion, and too often it's used to kick them in that moment. To say, "Ha ha, told you if you did that, this is going to happen. Good luck. You made the bed, lie in it." Right? But that's not how it's actually being used in the Bible, like, at all. In fact, it's not really used in the Bible that way ever. First thing is, when we actually read the Bible, yeah, we come across this phrase more than once, but in every single time you come across this phrase, it is not directed at an individual, it's directed at a community. So whether or not we can even use it as an individual is really questionable, because Jesus never used it as you, boom. He says we, or all y'all, depending on which time we use this phrase. So he's talking to a community. So he's talking on a communal level of communities get what they sow. They reap what they sow. And yes, there are sometimes a negative connotation to that, like there is in today's lesson, where he's like, guys, if you put your minds to only human things, all you're ever going to get is more human things. So if you become a church that's all about money, you're going to cease being church someday. If you're a church that's all about numbers, you're going to cease being a church someday, because church should be all about God, right? Now that isn't a you got your just desserts. That isn't kicking you while you down. That is saying, like, folks, just remember what's important. Because where you invest your heart and your time and your treasure is what will come out on the other end. You don't invest in your children are not likely to like you when they're adults. So on and so forth. Don't invest in your marriage, you might not have one after a while. That's not revenge, that's not I told you so, it's not kicking you while you're down. That's meeting you before anything bad has happened and just said, remember what's important and make sure that you're focused on that. Again, not really individually, but communally. Because what a community does and values and pursues is what one will eventually get. So he reminds everyone today, don't pursue those things of the flesh. Remember, everything we do as a church, and he's talking to a church, right, in a specific time, should be about God, should be about faith, should be about the enhancement of that. And all these other things might be indicators, might be helpful, might be nice, but they're not what we're here for. And if it ever becomes that, you cease being church. And you've lost something way better than anything you might have gained. That's the negative side. You flip that coin over, and this is where I think the real power of the statement comes from. See, when we go out and we do good, and this is true in the church, this is true in our community, this is true in our nation, it is so easy to wander around and be like the nice person who says bless you when someone sneezes in the parking lot over at Wegmans, and then realize like the last 20 times that you sneezed, no one said that to you, and to be like, ugh, right? Why are people so rude? Okay? And yet God reminds us if we keep going out there and we keep doing the good, no matter how big or how small, that does in fact matter because we are planting seeds in those moments. Because when we go out there and when we feed someone who's hungry, there is one less hungry person. When we care for someone who is hurting, there is someone who is healing. And if we want a world that's healed, we have to do the work. If we want a world that's kind, we must start by being kind. If we want a world that's rational, we must start by acting reasonably. Because at the end of the day, we reap what we sow. Now that sounds condemnation because we're so used to hearing it, but think about it this way. You may go out there and do good day after day after day after day, and people who do that often step back and go, man, I've been doing this for X number of years. When will I see things change? And God reminds you, do not lose heart. Whether or not you see things change or not is whether or not you're here for harvest time. You may be, you may not be. Something you sow, you will not reap, someone else will. Even Jesus notes that about himself, that he is reaping what his Father did, not what he did. He notes that about the harvester, you will reap what I did, because he is soon to die. And that's true of our lives. Some of the goodness we will reap. We will see it in the kindness of our children and how proud our parents are of us, of the relationships we build, the people we love. Much of it, though, your children will see. Your children's children will see. Just like much of what you enjoy today is by the sacrifices of people before you. 4th of July, we note those particular sacrifices by our veterans. Because we wouldn't have the freedoms to do the things we are doing this morning if it hadn't been for the sacrifices people generations before us that we do not know their names gave and sacrificed for us. This is true of freedom. This is true of happiness. This is true of rights. This is true of everything that is good in the world. We all stand on the shoulders of others so that others may stand on our shoulders in the future. For the world will reap whatever it is that we sow. So as you go out today in your lives, in your prayer lives, take a few moments and ask yourself, what do you sow in this week? What have you sown in your life? And what sort of future are you making for everyone come harvest time?